Well, hi everyone. My name is Mike Zack. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Acterys. I want to thank everyone for taking some time today to join me in today's session and today's workshop, especially on a Saturday afternoon. So, the session before this, Richie covered data visualization. And one of the most pivotal parts of data visualization is getting the data structure correct so that way you can easily visualize the data and provide and get insights out of that data set. So that's what we're going to cover today, a workflow based approach to data consolidation. Now, I'd like to start off with kind of a fun slide that many of you probably can relate to, or either in your current job or in a previous job. Time and time again, clients come to us with this challenge of data consolidation. They have a lot of different Excel spreadsheets that they're monitoring on a daily basis, different versions. They're emailing this between each other, and things get lost and broken. So, what we're going to discuss today is how we solve for this particular business problem. What Acterys brings to the table is a consolidation tool, self service, and we'll walk through that a little bit later. And the benefit is allowing users to create any type of report based on a data structure. And with that, what we can actually do is start to not only visualize our data, but plan accordingly. So we have different components, and we have this idea of a unified planning model or a dynamic planning model that allows you to do HR planning, sales planning, financial reporting, all any type of financial reporting that you absolutely need. Now, as I mentioned, one of the biggest problems that we hear about on a day-to-day basis is this idea of having an organization that has different disparate systems that they're trying to integrate with. Now, most of the time, people will export information into Excel, massage it within Excel, and then present reports based on that. Now, what the problem with that particular approach is that it's extremely hard to maintain. Going back to the second slide that I was showing earlier with all the different Excel versions. And ultimately, you are missing a lot of functionality by being able to look at things from top down, bottom up, slice and dice in a lot of different ways. Now, Excel is a wonderful tool, and I don't think Excel is going to go away anytime soon, but it's not meant for data structure or data modeling. So with Acterys, what we have done is we have built a solution to help organizations aggregate all of their data and create that single source of truth or that data warehouse that everyone operates under. We then take that information and we optimize it in what is known as a star schema data model with write back capabilities. And I'll elaborate more into that a little bit later. And then the last component is taking that information that is now optimized in the most precise way and allow users to interact with that data, get insights out of that, and become a little bit more strategic and add value to the organization. Now, this diagram is one of my favorites. It allows you to kind of visualize the concept of what's happening behind the scenes and what we're going to be talking about mostly today. We start over on the left-hand side of your screen, which is what we call our pre-built connectors. Now, there's hundreds of them out of the box, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. What we do is we actually integrate directly with these source systems, and we extract the data out into a central database or a data warehouse. And we normalize all of that data because, as you can imagine, different systems have different nomenclatures. In most cases, you don't want to be comparing apples to oranges. You want to be able to compare apples to apples, which will then provide those insights that I was referring to earlier. And then the last piece is once you have all of this data centralized and consolidated, you have various reporting engines that can read that data and provide visualizations. So for today, we're going to talk about Power BI and Excel, but there are obviously others in the world that you can connect a data warehouse to get insights. And then the last slide that I have, and I want to actually turn this into a working workshop that'll walk you through the process of how we actually create a central data source, is just around value creation. So our solution is meant to be self-service. Now, we are always here 24/7 to help anyone in the organization that would require it. But the idea of a data consolidation tool is that you want it to be a quick start. Time to value is our number one pillar that we operate under. And you want to have also these instant integrations. You don't want to have to worry about ETLing, which is just extracting data, transforming that data into a structure. That process should be handled automatically by systems. And also being able to create an end-to-end solution for that financial reporting. So automatically creating balance sheets, income statements, cash flow statements, looking at your DPO, your DSO metrics, among others. And really empowering users to create this themselves and identify those insights that they can bring to the organization. And then last but not least, as one of the biggest topics in the world over the last couple of years or so is smart planning or smart analytics. So enabling not only the data model that we create with machine learning and AI, but also being able to leverage that into the visualizations, once again, giving you that extra or additional feedback based on the consolidated view of your world. So just wanted to kind of set the foundation for everyone to give you an idea of kind of what's happening behind the scenes. But for today, what I would like to do, since we only have roughly about 20 minutes left and I want to leave some time for questions, is to actually put this into practice. How can we accomplish this in the easiest way possible? So I'm going to shift out of the PowerPoint presentation now and go right into the solution. Before I begin, one of the biggest components of Acterys is, as I mentioned earlier, self-service. So what we have done is we've created a landing page that allows users to come in and fill out the appropriate information and create their own database. Now, this is going to be a SQL database that we would be able to create, and that sits within the Azure cloud. Now, that could be deployed either on our Azure cloud, your Azure cloud, or on-premise. So a lot of different options for different organizations based on your needs. Once we set up this environment, which takes roughly about 2 to 3 minutes, I'm going to log into the one that I've already created just to show you the concept of what the Acterys modeler is going to do for your organization. So let me go ahead and log in here, go through the security protocols, multi-factor authentication, which is automatically enabled within the Acterys environment for an extra layer of security. Now, this is a web-based solution that's once again known as the Acterys modeler. This is where we're going to create today all of our dimensions and our data cubes or our data model. Now, within Acterys, we have something known as a data hub. So the data hub will allow you to connect to hundreds of different platforms instantly. Obviously, one of the most common, which is what we're going to work with today, which is Excel. But we can also connect to an existing Azure SQL server, a local server, or what's even more powerful is Power BI. And what takes place here is you can actually bring data in to Power BI, do all the transformation logic, especially if you have a lot more complexity to your business, that it does play an important role. Once it goes through that transformation within Power BI, it instantly can be integrated within the Acterys SQL database or that data warehouse. Now, the library of systems that we can connect to is consistently growing. It's very easy to connect to any one of these systems. You can either connect, as I mentioned, to these 3 sources here, or you can go actually to our integration tab, and it's a one-click option to connect to these source systems and bring in all of your financial data. Now, there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes. It's not just the one-click option for the end user. It's the ability to bring all that data in, create the data model, add additional measures to that data set like gross profit, EBITDA, EBIT, all the different margins, calculations, and KPIs that are standard in the industry. Those are automatically created based on this integration. And then we have report templates that are connected to that data model to really bring the information to life. Now, today, we're not going to actually go through and connect to one of these systems. That would be a little bit too easy for us. What I want to do is I want to create a data model from scratch just to show you how easy it is to do this through the Acterys platform. Now I'm going to bring over an Excel document that we have created. And there's 5 different dimensions that we're going to be working with today. Pretty generic. Obviously, we can get a lot more complex, but we have a time limit today. But we're going to look at date, scenario. So scenario will be like budget, forecast, and actual. So we can see different comparisons and do some variance analysis if required. We're going to have a list of all of our customers, a list of all of our products, and a list of various territories associated with those customers. And all we're going to do is we're going to take this information and we're going to copy the data within the first dimension being date. Now we can also auto generate the dates. This is just kind of showing you how easy it is to add a dimension into the Acterys modeler. Now there's 2 options that you can select from. The first is what we call just copy and paste from Excel, or we have this link dimension option, which can actually connect directly to a source system, an internal source system, like an Azure SQL database, local server, or even Power BI. Today, we're just going to go ahead and copy and paste this into it from Excel. So we have the dimension called date. We're going to go ahead and copy that into the body of this page here. We're going to use the first row as a column name, so we don't have to create those. And we're going to go ahead and hit the create button. Now, instantly, the system has added a new dimension to the solution. And we're going to take all of these dimensions and we're going to combine them together to create an optimal data model. Now, before we create the other dimensions, a couple things that I want to point out. You can see how quickly and easily it was to import this data, but we can also edit these dimensions. So, for example, later down the road, if you wanted to add a new element, now this may not pertain to dates, but maybe a new customer, a new product or SKU, or new manufacturing facility, something along those lines. You can go ahead and click Add Element, and you can then type that in. What we're doing is we're actually placing a platform, the Acterys modeler, on top of the data warehouse. So you don't have to have any type of SQL knowledge or have to write any SQL code. All of that's being done automatically for you through the front end tool of the Acterys modeler. We can also add new columns, we can change columns, and we can even do linked columns, which is the ability to link it to another dimension for drop-down capabilities. So that way users don't actually have to free-form data, and that becomes important in financial planning. So let's go through the rest of the dimensions here. So we've just done date. Let's go now to scenario. Go back to our dimension. We're going to, once again, create the scenario, use first row as column name, and go ahead and create that. We're going to go back to our Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to now copy our customer information and create another dimension, which is what I'm going to call customer. I'm going to paste that into Excel as well, or from Excel into Acterys, and go ahead and hit create. We're going to create 2 more. We're going to do product. So we're going to go ahead and hit plus, call this product, paste it in, use first row as column names. And last but not least, we're going to go ahead and copy our territories and add that as well. Perfect. So we have now just added 5 individual dimensions. And now what we want to do is we want to combine all of these into an optimal data model. Now, in that case, that is what we call a cube. So from this standpoint, we're going to go ahead and create a cube. We're just going to call this PPF. And we're going to go ahead and link this data model to all the various dimensions that we just created. We're going to go ahead and hit create. And now we are done. We have now created a data model as well as optimized our dimensions based on the source system that we've connected to. In this case, it's going to be Excel. All right, so now the fun begins. Once you've consolidated all this information, now we can start to build reports off of this. Now, I'm not going to go too much in detail with reporting and visualizations because that was the session that was covered earlier today. But I want to talk about how all of this comes together and how we get to a point of being able to visualize this data and really interact with it instantly. So I'm going to pull up a Power BI template here. Now, what I've done here is I've created 2 different tabs. Now, Acterys offers 8 visuals within Power BI. that are enabled for financial reporting as well as for financial planning. The first visual that we're going to tackle today is called the Acterys Table Edit visual. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and connect to our data source and automatically pull in the data model that we just created. So here's the database that we've connected to, the Acterys database. You can see there's the PPF data cube that we just created. Now WB stands for write back because we do enable all of our data models to become write back enabled, which allows you to interact with this data and plan ultimately within Power BI, Excel, or any other business intelligence tool. So we're going to go ahead and select the one we created here. And we're going to select all related tables, which is going to select the customer table, the date table, the product table, and the territory table. And we're going to go ahead and load that data cube into the solution. So we'll just give it a few seconds to automatically load that into our Power BI template. There we go. And over to the right, you'll see the variety of fields that were just added. Now, more importantly, if I go into the data model, you can see, if I just zoom out a little bit, you can see that all of the information is now connected automatically. So this is one of the the hardest parts for people to put together themselves, just because of the complexity of their organization and how everything is connected. Well, within a few minutes, we're able to not only load in our data, we're also able to create a data cube and a data model around that and have that connected to our fact table, which we're ultimately going to load data into and interact with. Coming back to the report itself, we're going to go ahead and set up this report in a little bit more detail. So we're going to go ahead and bring in some requirements that are needed to validate the write back capabilities. And what you're going to notice is this table edit visual. And what the table edit visual will allow me to see, let me just go ahead and add our database name for our database name. Perfect. So I just added the database name. And what this table edit visual will do is it'll give you access within Power BI to the various dimensions that we just created. So for example, customer. Now, what's great about Acterys is not only are we consolidating all of your information in a relatively quick way, we allow users to now manipulate that data in the Acterys SQL database. We are not manipulating any data in the source system. Remember, we're taking information from the source system and centralizing it into a data warehouse. And we also have various scenarios that we can interact with, actual, budget, and forecasts. So when we get into financial reporting and financial planning, this plays a very important role. So this is looking at the dimension table that we imported in from Excel. So here you can see we have a list of all of our customers. Now with Acterys, what we're doing is we're actually turning business intelligence tools into a two-way street. Not only bringing data in and visualizing and consolidating that data, which is an important element in creating that data model, but that two-way street, which is that write back capability back into the centralized data source. So for example, if we wanted to change or add a new customer, all we have to do is click on this little plus sign here, and it's going to add a new row into the database, into our data model that we can then use for reporting capabilities. Or we can modify existing data if we wanted to. Again, for planning purposes mostly, or just master data management in other cases. So let's go ahead and change this name here to Mike, just to show the capabilities. And we're going to go ahead and save that. And now, as you'll see, we're in Power BI at the moment, and we've changed the first name of Alexa to Mike. If I go back to our central data consolidation tool, which is the Acterys modeler, and I go right into the dimension that we created called customer, you can see instantly the name change. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. The name that was changed from Alexa to Mike. So that's how powerful Acterys is to not only consolidate your information, which is important for my financial reporting, but also enable your financial reports to become editable to a certain extent. And of course, there's always security protocols, role level security that's incorporated in this entire process, locking things down, all of that, which is important. And we can certainly talk about that at a later time. I'm going to come back to our Power BI report here and go into another visual that we offer, which is called the Acterys matrix. What we have done is we've created a more robust matrix visual for users to adhere to. And this will allow you to group data both in the rows as well as in the columns. So very easy to, once again, set this up. So let's go ahead and click on the visual. We're going to go ahead and bring in the amount field from our fact table, which is that data cube that we created earlier. And we're also going to set up our user information real quick here, just because we have to. And then last but not least, we're going to go ahead and just add our database name that we created today. So the PPF webinar, and our cube name, which is PPF. Once we set that up, now we can start to bring in rows and columns from the various dimensions and that data model that we automatically created. So here we can go ahead and bring in, let's say, like our customer name could be in our row. And there you go. You can see now a list of all of our customer names coming in. The most important thing is that everyone is working on the same data model. So any changes that are made, any additions that have been added to the data model, everyone's working on that single source of truth, which is one of the most important components for collaboration purposes. So here we've just selected name. If we want, we can also pull in any other data source if we wanted to from a grouping mechanism, so we can have different hierarchies along the rows as well as the columns. So for the columns, what I'm going to go ahead and do is use the date structure. Now we can do this by year. We can also then do this by quarter as well as by date. So we've created 3 different date scenarios, and we can go ahead and drill down. You have the month or the quarter, excuse me, and then you have the date. What we can also do is we can go into another dimension that we've created, which is our scenario dimension. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to X out our quarter, X out our date, and just keep our year. And I'm going to bring in the scenario name, which now allows me to view actual budget and forecast information side by side. Now, I'll show you in a moment a finished product. Really, the main piece and why I wanted to demonstrate this specifically was to give everyone an idea of how easy it is to create the first version of your consolidation solution using familiar tools. So today we've only used Excel, Power BI, and the Acterys modeler. Excel and Power BI, most of you are probably familiar with. Acterys obviously is probably new to a lot of you, but hopefully you've seen today that it's very, very easy to interact with. And as I mentioned earlier, the whole idea of Acterys is to really empower users to do this themselves and not have to rely on IT in general. So the last thing that I'll mention is the fact that we can also come in here and we can start to add numbers. So for example, this plays a huge role in planning and budgeting when we're actually able to enter in data. Now, of course, in a real life example, you would not be entering in actual data. This would be pulling from your source system, but you would be entering in budget or forecast data or pulling that from a system as well. But what I'm showing is the flexibility of the solution and how easy it is to enter in data via Power BI, and that information automatically gets saved back to the central data warehouse. Now, I know we only have a few minutes left, so I want to cover a couple other things. Now, we've shown how we are able to interact with the data model, the consolidated data model within Power BI, but we also have an Excel add-in that you can access that same data model. So instead of using Excel as a reporting tool, you're using it as a container to create reports, but linking it to that specific data model. Oops, I signed into the wrong one. Let's see if I can try this again. So Excel is a great tool for reporting in certain cases. And what you want to do is you want to be able to connect to that same data model based on a variety of different output options. So let me go ahead and sign in here. So what we're doing is we're just connecting to the data model that we created today. We're going to go ahead and just skip that for now. And we're going to go ahead and locate the dimensions in our dimension editor. So we're going to go ahead and select our customer just because that's what we've been picking on so far today. And you can see we have automatically loaded all of that customer information. Let me just try that again into a different sheet. I didn't mean to load it into that sheet. So we can see all of our customer information automatically within this Excel spreadsheet. And we can then change this. Might make more sense if I just open up a brand new one. For some reason, it's doesn't like that original document that we were working in. Let's try this one more time. Customer load. There we go. So there we can see there's the Alexa, there's the mic that we changed. Let's go ahead and change this back to Alexa, and we can go ahead and commit those changes. So what will happen is you can see that this has changed. So once we commit, that'll automatically update this central data model, which will then automatically update Power BI as well. So just as a quick recap here, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3, literally. Connecting to all of your different systems, so hundreds of different applications that we can connect into instantly. Step 2 is once we consolidated that information, building that optimal star schema data model for you automatically within the Acterys cube structure. And also being able to give you access to predefined templates. Now, the templates wasn't able to show, but let me just quickly jump back into our example here. So here's one of our examples of a template that's automatically optimized for a variety of different systems. In this case, we're looking at Xero, but we do have others that we can certainly showcase. So this is the consolidated view at an organization level for your performance based on your financial data. So we're looking at summary of income by company or by legal entity, looking at actual data, budget data, top customer information. All the various tool tips are built in automatically. So this is what we're providing our users within a 30-minute time window. We can onboard them from pulling from their systems, creating that data warehouse, connecting it to our reporting, our financial reporting templates, and they get those insights instantly. And then, of course, in this case, this is built in Power BI, so you can change any information, change the color scheme, change the theme, create your own custom calculations. But it's a great starting point to give you the power of creating that central data model as well as the reporting tools. Now, I know that I've probably talked for a little too long. A lot of this information could be overwhelming in some cases. I promise the last thing that I will mention is we do have a YouTube channel that I think would be helpful if you want to go through this, as well as we have pre-packaged solutions for a variety of different business problems and industries. We call them our rapid result packs. Again, it's all about getting you that time to value, quick jump start into these consolidated reports. So we have one for hospitality industries, software as a service industries, local governments, for logistics, as well as agricultural and farming. And the library of this is consistently growing as people are taking our tools and our solution and creating their own platform. So as I mentioned, I know I've been talking quite a bit now, and hopefully all of this makes sense. It was pretty straightforward, but I would love to open it up to see if anyone has any questions.
Cool. Thanks very much, Mike. That was great. Really good to see Acterys. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, great. We've got a question from Fernando around when you were doing the consolidation. So say we add a new customer in Acterys, how would that reflect in the data source? Or will it be disassociated from it and then we end up with two different sets of data?
Great question. Most of the time, you will add a new customer when we're just talking about financial reporting. Financial planning is a little bit different. So financial reporting, you're most likely add that customer into the source system, and that source system is automatically connected to Acterys, so it'll automatically be imported. Now, for planning, that's a little bit different. In some cases, you want to manipulate the data and create more of like a what if scenario. What if I were to add this new customer? In that case, what we're doing is we're just changing the scenario, budget, or forecast, or whatever you name it. And that does not get integrated with your source system. So your actual data, your actual customers that you're adding will always come from your source system. For planning, that you can start to manipulate numbers, manipulate customers, add things to give you that what if scenario testing. Does that answer your question?
It was Fernando's question, but yeah, I think so. I mean, I put on the chat as well. We haven't been able to bring it up. You know, I think there's huge value in having this kind of staging layer for your data. And obviously you can write back to source systems from Power BI if that's what you want to do. If you want to add a new customer in Power BI or Excel and write back to your source system, you could use something like Acterys to do that. But I think, especially for finance, having this layer in between your source systems and Power BI, where you can do things like adjustments, you know, consolidation adjustments, and then, you know, have commentary and things like that. And all your data comes in from your source systems, sits in a database that finance can control. So it's permissions, it's audit trails. I don't think Mike showed it here, but you've got the kind of bulk upload capability where you can take a table of data in Excel from Acterys, edit it, and write it back if you've got the permissions. And it does those data quality checks as you write it back. It's got referential integrity. So I can't just go in and put a transaction against account number 5,000 if account number 5,000 doesn't exist. So it's got checks like that, and it's got, because it's permissions based and auditable, you know, your auditors will love you for having something like this. If you just say to them, right, everything I've done is on Excel spreadsheets, you're going to end up in audit trouble at some point. So really good idea to have some kind of system in place to do this. Right, so are there any questions in the room? Yeah.
From Power BI to Acterys middle layer. How about if the source data refresh in the transaction system or Excel file? How to refresh that data after what we done the write back?
Okay, sure. Did you catch that, Mike? Or I'll repeat it anyway, just for the So the question is, we're writing back from Power BI to our central staging layer. How does it work if our underlying source data is also changing at that time? How do we keep those changes in sync, if you like, coming from Power BI to front end and from your source system at the back end?
Yeah, so remember when we, I'm just going back to the Acterys modeler for a moment here. Remember when we created a dimension called scenario? So the scenario is going to define each one of these, so actual, budget, and forecast. So your actual data, which is constantly changing, you know, retroactively and proactively, that will automatically come into the scenario dimension called actual, and that's a live link. So any changes that are made in the source system automatically get reflected in the staging layer, the data warehouse. Now, on the other side, like your budget, for example, most of the clients that are working with Acterys are budgeting within Excel, Power BI, or any other business intelligence tool. What they're doing is they're typing in the budget within Power BI, let's say, and that is getting written back to the same source system that is right next to the actual data that's coming from your accounting system, let's say. So it's all interconnected, and the way that it's interconnected is based on a dimension called scenario, actual, budget, and forecast. Your budget could also come from your accounting system as well, right? So these could both be live links, and then you can copy your budget, which is, I mean, we only scratched the surface on what Acterys can do. We can probably spend hours talking about all the different capabilities, but you may have just copy your budget, which is coming from your source system automatically, and it's constantly changing. And you can copy that into a forecast and start doing what-if analysis on it within Power BI, Excel, or other business intelligence tools.
Yeah. I mean, generally, your write back to your staging layer is direct query mode, not import mode. Yeah. So you can,
That's correct.
You can go back there. And then from your source system into the staging layer, it's like import mode. So you can set up a schedule in Acterys to say, I want it every hour, every day, you know, whatever it is that you want to do, depending on when your source data gets refreshed. You can then link that into Acterys so it goes into your staging layer. So it depends on the use case, right? So
yes.
Modify in record in my Power BI write back. That's I deleted one row.
Yeah.
In Power BI. When you write back to staging layer, at the same time when the data refreshes, after that, from the source system, what will be seen in the staging layer? Can we see a deleted record, because the same record already exists in the source system?
Yeah, I mean, so the question is, if you deleted a row from Power BI, and then it deleted that row in your staging layer, and then your data refreshed from the source system, which had that row in there, for example, what would the staging layer do? Would it say, hang on, that row's been deleted by Power BI, so it's not there anymore? Or would it show the audit trail of it being deleted and added?
The above are options. So we do, everything is audited within the system in our log table, and these logs or these audit trails are automatically stored at the database level. And also any commenting that you make based on the intersection of data. So those logs will tell you exactly what was deleted and we also have exception reporting too. So information that's coming from your source system and things that are being added to your budget, that'll also be recorded as a mismatch in your exception reporting. So you can also build that in Power BI as part of your entire platform as an exception reporting to make sure that both sides are matching with one another.
Cool. Does that answer your question? Great. Any other questions in the room? Yeah, Jude?
It's about repeatability. Are you able to script this out and recreate it somewhere else if you wanted to make another domain of the same?
So to what extent are you able to kind of script out maybe your stored procedures and stuff in the SQL database and apply them into a different tenant or a different environment?
Oh, so the benefit of Acterys is that we're using all familiar tools. So it's a SQL database, just like any other SQL database. You can script out data, you can export data, you can do stored procedures and triggers if you wanted to. So a lot of capabilities. So anything that you can accomplish today within your Microsoft SQL environment is exactly what you can accomplish within Acterys, because we're using the same exact stack.
Yeah. Do you have access to that SQL database and the stored procedures and all the rest of it that run behind it? Or
Yeah, I could pull up SQL Statement Management Studio here.
yeah. Okay. Cool. I just wondered. Sorry, just a question. I just wondered if the customer has access to it, but they do, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So like for example, when we went through that onboarding screen earlier, let me just move this over. Right. So we're creating a tenant name or a SQL database name along with a user creation of that SQL database, which is and I'll show you in a moment once my SQL Server Management Studio loads here. So if you sign into SQL just as any other database.
Brilliant.
So you can import it.
Yeah, it's a SQL database, and you have control over that SQL database, so you can copy those stored procedures, those tables, create external links to it, like you would with any SQL database.
All right. Can you ask him if that's manual? So Mike can load in an existing profile into here. And
It's just SQL, right? So whatever you can do with SQL, you can use, Redgate tools or whatever it is to automate exports.
Yeah, so all we're going to do is we're just going to go connect to the SQL, so with the server, acterys.database.windows.net. And then, of course, we're going to use universal MFA. So we create a username automatically, a database username for you when we onboard. So in this case, it's going to be PPF webinar at acterys.onmicrosoft.com. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and connect to the database, which we create. This AP_PPF webinar. And we're going to go ahead and connect. Now it's going to ask me to log in multi-factor authentication. So let me just go ahead and sign in. Let's skip this for now. So it's like logging into any other database because it's a SQL database. So we have all of our database tables, and I'll go ahead and show the customer table just because that's what we've been picking on, but we also have all of our stored procedures that you can get access to. You have all the dimensions that we created. There's product, there's scenario, there's territory. Let's see, customer, there we go. So we can go ahead and select that. And you can then see there's the exact table that we affected today when I change it from Alexa to Mike. So anything could be extracted. So this is just a SQL server. Again, we're using familiar tools. That's why a lot of clients can get up and running relatively quickly, because they already have that expertise in-house.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Mike. I haven't seen any questions online, so I think we're done, ready for a break.